Hello and welcome or welcome back. I'm Cathy Liska with the Center for Coaching Certification and with Coach 123.
And I'm Pandora Ray, also with the Center for Coaching Certification and Coach 123. Welcome.
Yes. And we are super excited about our guest and topic today. As a starting point, Risa, please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Risa Seelenfreund. My firm is Diligencia, and I am a leadership coach. I develop impactful, empathetic, and confident leaders through coaching and training.
Awesome. Love it. So of course that's setting up where we're going to go. Risa brings a lot of insight in terms of delegation and delegation for leaders in particular. Uh, Starting with that, Risa, what are your observations around delegation and leadership?
So it's as I said, I'm a leadership coach, and leaders come to me for a variety of purposes or needs. And I find that almost every one of them has challenges with delegating, and that may not be what they initially came to me for. That may not be one of their initial goals, but underlying, it is so often an issue or a challenge with delegation.
Yeah, totally
Yeah,
makes sense. So
I-
what is
it's
your
huge.
approach when that comes up?
I think the first thing is to recognize that it takes time for someone to be an effective delegator, not to expect someone to change overnight. And related to that, it's really important to get to the cause of where the delegation issues are coming from, because the way we address it or the questions that I ask are different depending on the cause. So that's really important. And then work with them based on the cause and based on the issues that they're having, come up with help them to recognize the issue and then help them to come up with an appropriate solution for themselves. And then, encourage them and myself too, as the coach, is to take the time and the effort to help them to work through it so that they can come up with the best solutions for themselves and their team.
Lisa, what's your sense of what's behind all of this challenge? Why delegation or how delegation is so?
Yeah, I would say it's not the same, as I said before, it's not the same for everybody. For some, it's a fear of letting go. For some, it's they just never learned how to do it. And this happens all the time where someone gets promoted to a management position because they're very good in their field. And the assumption is made that because they're good in their field, they will be a good manager or leader in that field. And they're not given the opportunity to learn specific leadership skills, delegation being one of those critical skills. So that's another reason, again, it's the fear or it's being promoted without being able to learn how to delegate. Um, Sometimes I've seen this a lot where a leader does not have good role models. So when they were delegated to, it was not done in an appropriate or very helpful or supportive manner. And so that's the way they did it, right? That's what they learned, and they didn't learn anything else. And then I also, one other thing is sometimes it's they're just not sure what to delegate or what can be delegated. So that becomes part of the conversation as well. So I'd say it's one of those four things, or sometimes a combination of them.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely makes sense. So in your experience working with these leaders, what are things they do that make the difference?
I think one is to be patient with themselves, to give themselves grace that if it really comes from a fear of letting go, expecting oneself to just all of a sudden change behaviors and let go is not going to happen. And that just sets them up for feeling like they're not successful or not meeting the needs of their team. So I think it's really important that they give themselves grace and to do it in steps. So that's one thing. And the other is to just practice. Start small steps. Recognize some things are going to be harder to delegate than others. So pick something that's easier or something that's small. See how that goes. learn from it, and then continue to expand and to grow. And I will say one other thing is recognizing that how they learned is not necessarily the right way. Sometimes we don't have the best role models. So being willing to step away from how they were delegated to a new, better, improved way that will support their teams.
Yeah. And so talk more about specific things they figure out to do that really help them.
Yeah, again, I would say it's starting with something easy.
Yeah.
So, what is something that, maybe it's completing a spreadsheet, maybe it's something that has low impact. For example, putting together an agenda for a team meeting. So, that's low impact. If it doesn't go well, no one outside the team has to know about it. So the importance of being willing to start small, experiment, work with things that are low impact, and then take it from there.
Yeah, it looked like you were going to ask a question. I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I'm working on it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the wheels are turning.
Yeah. I'm just thinking, okay, you've got this leader. They're either learning how to delegate or figuring out what to delegate. Uh, what are what are they figuring out in these coaching conversations that helps them follow through?
Mm. So it's figuring out. It often comes down to what is on your plate right now.
Uh,
Okay, what is something that you feel comfortable with letting go? And if not a whole thing, let's break it down into smaller pieces. What is one thing that you can start with?
uh,
So it's what can I let go of? And then how can I provide the support? Right? Because delegation is not abdication. And sometimes it's helping them to recognize that delegation is not just passing it off and then not being there, because then they'll say, okay, well, I delegated and it did not go well. Okay, well, let's explore that. What happened? Okay, what do you think led to that? What's a different approach that you could have taken? Ah, so you said you didn't provide support. All right, how could you handle that differently? Okay, so what I'm hearing you say is that when you delegate, you are also going to check in periodically. Okay, how can you come up with a schedule so that you are there to make sure they're not falling off the rails?
uh, and I'm guessing as a coach, you probably have them describe what they want it to be, ideally, when they're delegating effective.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What are some of the things they tell you?
Yes. One of them is I am not overwhelmed. I am not overworked. That's a huge one.
Mhm.
And then also I have team members who are engaged and who are busy and who are doing things that they enjoy. But I would say that number one thing is I am less overwhelmed.
Uh,
I
so it
think
frees
perhaps,
up their time. Oh, sorry, Pam, go ahead.
what do you think about the concept that there's a negative connotation to just the term delegation?
Yeah, that and sometimes we explore that as well. It's what do you hear in the word delegation? And it's often something around this concept of abdication that I don't want to do it, so I'm passing it off to somebody else. So then it's asking questions like, well, what are the consequences of not delegating? What are the consequences to you? And what are the consequences to your team? And so for the team, sometimes they'll say something like, well, then they're not learning or they're not doing something differently. Okay, well, then what does that mean to them? Well, it means they're getting bored. Okay, so how else can you think about delegation and then helping them to come around to, oh, it's not just me passing off stuff that I don't want to do, it's helping my team to learn and grow and expand. So it's helping them to change their view obviously asking them the question so they come up with it themselves, and then seeing that light bulb go on when they say, oh, it does help them.
Like
It's not negative.
management, performance management, which is one of your particular niches too.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, which is awesome. And talk about the impact that has on the culture in their workplace.
Right. I mean, if you've ever spoken to or worked for somebody who was a leader who did not delegate, team members tend to be unhappy, bored, like we said before. The manager is overwhelmed and they often spread that stress to the people on their team, and it really impacts the culture negatively. They're not collaborating as a team. It's the manager who tries to do everything. Everyone else feels that they are not important, and the manager becomes a bottleneck. So it becomes this really negative cycle. But when they are delegating, in fact, I can give an example to about someone who I recently coached, was not the strongest delegator, then came to realize that it benefited both themselves as the individual because they were less overwhelmed, and their team members loved being given more work and not being told exactly how to do it, but being told, okay, here's what I need your help with, and giving them the flexibility to do it themselves. And one team member actually said to this manager, I love that you let me figure it out myself. Think about what that does for the culture. People want to take on the work, want to come to work, want to be a part of this collaborative team. So it can make a huge difference in creating a healthy culture on the team.
It's really interesting that you bring something up that's very rich. In the training sphere, we often talk about confidence, client confidence.
Mm.
How does confidence fit into this challenge that you're dealing with in your coaching practice?
It's huge, and it shows up in different ways. One is, well, if they don't know how to delegate, there's a confidence issue there, and that's why it's important to start slowly and say, okay, you did this small bit, how did that go? How can you expand it so they can grow their confidence slowly? Sometimes they don't delegate because of a lack of confidence in the team members. So I'm not sure where you were addressing your question from, whether it was individual confidence or confidence of the team members. But sometimes it again, it's the leader's lack of confidence in their team, and that hurts the culture, that lack of trust. And so again, starting slowly helps the manager to build that trust slowly over time. Look, you're not going to all of a sudden delegate something that the CEO of the organization is going to read, right? Because you can't afford to make the mistake. You're not going to want to take that risk. But if you're willing to start with something small, something that's lower impact, you can build the confidence of the team members little by little and assign them more and more work. And you may end up with more confidence in some team members than others, and that's okay. We don't delegate the same way to everybody. And so you determine who can take on the most or different types of projects and build that confidence step by step and person by person.
Yeah. You know, as you're talking, what keeps popping in my head is the parallel between coaching and effective delegation.
Yes, yes.
Same word.
Yeah. Well, uh, because as a coach, I am not telling them what to do. I am guiding them to find a way that works for them. And that's exactly what delegation is. That is such a great link,
Yeah.
right? Because every person is different and every person needs to discover for themselves a way that works for them. Now, something that's a little bit different is that in coaching, I don't give them my expertise, right?
Right.
Even if I've done it before. But as a leader, I can say, here, you do it your way. And if they're falling off track, I can then come back and say, well, you know what? This is what has worked for me. maybe you want to give that a try, or give some advice, which is okay with delegating, not okay with coaching, as we all know.
Right.
But there is certainly a link between the two. Yeah.
Yeah. So the leader being confident in the person on their team, empowering that person to figure it out, and then being available if they're running into problems or challenges.
Yes, being there for support.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to me, that's very much parallel with coaching. And one of the reasons
Th-
coaching is so effective for people.
yeah. That's such a great aha moment for me right now because I hadn't really thought about that really deep connection.
What's one of your favorite stories of success?
Hmm. Well, so one is someone who I coached recently. And as I said, the cause of delegation is different depending on the person. And this person, it was not a struggle with not wanting to give up control or not having a good role model. It was just that it didn't occur to them that somebody else could do some of this work. And so it was helping this individual to be able to identify what was on their plate and having them think about, am I the one who has to do this? And it became kind of a mantra for them. Do I have to do this? And being able to think about for every task or every project that was thrown on their desk, do I have to be the one to do this? And it could be, all right, maybe there are pieces I need to do. Who else can do other pieces? And for this person, the huge aha was, I don't have to do it all. And I can share another example. Someone else, it was different. This is someone who did not have a great role model. And so this person's approach to delegation was pass it off, say, you need to do it. Don't come to me with questions. I just expect you to get it done. And what happened was there were team members who were um, not feeling very good about this. They did not have a great relationship. They felt like work was being dumped on them. It wasn't a safe environment to ask questions. And so when I worked with the leader, it was, how else can you approach this? What are the issues that you're seeing? And what can be done differently to try to close the gap? And this individual was an expert in their field. So it was think about what you know and what they know, and how can you help close the gap based on your experience rather than simply abdicating. And that was an aha to them that, oh, I don't just pass it off and wash my hands of it, that I need to be there to support them, to help them to be successful. So those are a couple of examples, again, with the need to delegate coming from two separate issues or challenges.
Yeah.
Another thing that just I thought really fascinating as you're talking is sometimes a client knows more than they think they know, or an employee knows more than they think they do.
Mm-hmm.
And so as a coach, it's such a great way to uncover what is it that you do know? Another
Yeah.
aha.
Yes, another aha. And also to recognize what they don't know. So, for example, if they, well, what does delegation mean to you? And they may say, well, it's giving work to somebody and I don't have to deal with it anymore. Oh, okay. Well, what kind of results are you getting from that? Okay. How else can you think of delegation? So they're recognizing that their one way of doing it is not the only way, and quite frankly, may not be the best way. And they're coming to that realization based on the questions that they're being asked.
Yeah. And you're throwing in examples of some great coaching questions as you're talking. Share more of those. What are coaching questions that work well in this type of situation?
Well, to try to get to the cause, some questions are, where does the struggle or the challenge, what are some of the challenges that you face with delegating? Where do you think that's coming from? So helping them to discover why they're challenged in the first place, and then how can you get started? Again, recognizing that it may be a slow burn or slowly building up. How can you get started? That's a big one. What's the next step that you can take? What are you seeing about yourself? This is also a big one. What are you learning about yourself? Where, maybe it's me, maybe I have trouble with letting go of control, or maybe I am disorganized and not paying attention to everything that's on my plate, so that helping them to learn about themselves is a big a big question as well. And then asking them afterwards, how do you feel now? And then also one of the early questions could be, well, how do you want to feel? Which very often is, I want to feel less overwhelmed. Like, and I see it in their body. I want to feel less overwhelmed, which is a huge thing to notice as a coach. It's not just in their answer, but in their body language as well. So that big question, how do you want to feel? And then, okay, how can you get there? What are some specific steps to take? And then at once they start delegating, the question of, how do you feel now? And again, seeing not only hearing not only the answer, but seeing the body language of, I feel less overwhelmed. Or I had a team member tell me they loved the way I asked them, to share how they did it in a way that worked for them. So those are some of the questions.
Yeah. And curious, Risa, how do you feel about the successes you're experiencing in this area?
Well, it's funny as I'm sitting here watching myself, I see my own body language and how I, I'm smiling. I love talking about it because I see such a difference it can make in a leader's professional career. And it makes me feel satisfied. It makes me feel like I'm doing, in my own small way, making a difference in somebody's life. As a coach, I like to say, I love to see those aha moments when that light bulb goes on. And it is just so rewarding for me to see that and being able to make a difference, and all not just in their professional career so they can move up in the organization, but helping them with their mental health as well, because they often come in so overwhelmed and overburdened and they just don't know where to go next. And seeing them being able to take a breath, that I've helped in my own small way. It feels really good. Thank you for asking that.
That's amazing.
Really great use of words too, rather than feeling overwhelmed and feeling overburdened and feeling tired, to feel useful, to feel satisfied, to feel like it's rewarding, to feel like I'm making a difference. That's what we do all the time, and shifting a client from here to there, as you so aptly described. Thank you for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. So, Risa, what are some closing thoughts you want people to go away with? Hmm.
I would say that if you are coaching leaders, a lot of times some of their struggles stem from delegating, even if it does not come out at the beginning. So it's something to possibly explore. It's also important to recognize that challenges with delegation don't necessarily all come from the same cause. And the way you address it is often dependent on the cause, right? If someone is fearful of letting go of control, the types of questions you're going to ask are going to be different from someone who just doesn't even think about delegating. It's important to recognize where it's coming from so that you can best support them. And then I would say the last thought is baby steps. People are not going to change overnight, and help them to come up with the baby steps and encourage them to celebrate each small step.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So, for the people that want to find you, how can they?
Sure. Well, I'm on LinkedIn. They can also email me or check out my website. So my company name is Diligencia Talent Consulting, and that's spelled Diligencia. So email is Risa, Risa, at diligenciatalentconsulting.com. That's email. And then my website is diligenciatalentconsulting.com.
Yeah.
I would love to hear from anybody.
Awesome. Awesome. That's absolutely great. Pam, closing thought from you?
Thank you for sharing your approach and your work on such a universal and important topic. Really, really good stuff.
Thank
Yeah.
you. My pleasure. I love sharing it. And you're right. It is universal. Like the more coaching I do, the more delegation comes up. So I'm happy to share some approaches and my experiences.
Yeah, we talk about influencing factors, and common influencing factors are time and money. And it feels like delegation is right in there with the time issue.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah. Very often it is so closely tied to a time management issue where sometimes it, people have time management issues because they're taking on too much and they're not delegating. And then I've also had clients who say, oh, I don't have time to delegate. It takes too much time.
yeah,
So that's kind of a reverse, but also a time issue that can be explored.
yeah, yeah. So definitely a factor for people, whether or not it's identified up front. So
Yeah. Yeah.
Risa, thank you so much. It's great to hear the insights and your expertise around coaching leaders on delegation. Awesome conversation today. Very much appreciate that. In addition to reaching out to Risa, do come visit us at www.coach-123.com or at www.coachcert.com. And make it a great one, everyone. Thank you.